Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for taking time out of your day to join this meeting. This will be the remote public scoping meeting for the Herkimer-Williams proposal. We'll be getting started in just a few minutes at 2 p.m. So we will see you all in a few minutes. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. You are tuning in to the remote public scoping meeting for the Herkimer-Williams proposal. The City Environmental Quality Review, or CEQR number for this application is 24DCP055K. Next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right. Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Shalou. I'm the director of the New York City Department of City Planning's Environmental Assessment and Review Division, or EARD. Evren Olkar-Kajar, Deputy Director of EARD, will co-host today's meeting, and in the event of any technical challenges, Everin will take over. I will note that we are having some technical difficulties on the city network today. So if any, we appreciate your patience with any technical challenges that we do run into today. Thanks so much for taking this time out of your day to attend this meeting. And I also want to emphasize that we'll hear from everyone who wishes to speak today, and the meeting will remain open until all registered speakers have had an opportunity to speak. We also welcome written comments and testimony on this application, and we'll accept written comments through 5 p.m. on Friday, December 29th, 2023. And we provide written comments with the same attention and consideration as the comments we hear today live at this meeting. All right, we will now proceed to the official public scoping meeting for Herkimer-Williams. Again, the City Environmental Quality Review, or CEQR, application number for the proposal is 24DCP055K. Today's date is December 19th, 2023, and the time is approximately 2:02 p.m. Next slide. Again, I'm Stephanie Shalou, Director of the Environmental Assessment and Review Division of the Department of City Planning, and I'll be chairing today's meeting. The Department of City Planning is acting on behalf of the City Planning Commission as the lead agency for the proposal's environmental review. As lead agency, the department is responsible for overseeing the preparation and completion of an environmental impact statement, or EIS, for this Herkimer-Williams proposal. Next slide. As I mentioned, several of my colleagues from the Department of City Planning join me today. Evren Olker-Gajar, Deputy Director of EARD. We're also joined by members of the department's Brooklyn office, Deputy Director Karenza Wood, and the Project Manager for the proposal, Jesse Hirakawa. We're also joined by Jameson Mitchell, the Project Manager for the proposal in the Environmental Assessment and Review Division. There's also a handful of staff members that are helping this meeting run smoothly behind the scenes, so thank you again to all of those folks as well. Next slide. Together, we are here to receive your comments on the draft scope of work for the Herkimer-Williams proposal. The draft scope of work identifies the subjects that will be analyzed in the upcoming draft environmental impact statement and describes the methodologies that will be used to explore those subjects. The draft scope of work is available on the Department of City Planning website and available through the Zoning Applicants Portal, or ZAP. Next slide. The purpose of today's meeting is to allow for public participation in the preparation of the DEIS at the earliest possible stage. Specifically, scoping allows the public to help shape the DEIS before it is written. Toward that end, the department, as lead agency, will receive verbal testimony on the draft scope of work from elected officials, government agencies, the local community board, and the public. As I mentioned, we also welcome written comments on the draft scope of work, and those written comments can be submitted through 5 p.m. Friday, December 29th, 2023. Next slide. At the end of that written comment period, the department as lead agency will review all comments, those we received today in this meeting, as well as any written comments that we receive. After carefully reviewing all comments, the department will decide what changes, if any, need to be made to the draft scope of work, and we will issue a final scope of work. It's the final scope of work that serves as the basis for preparing the DEIS. Next slide. Today marks the beginning of that written comment period on the draft scope of work. No decisions will be made regarding the draft scope of work. Again, the purpose of today's meeting is to allow the public to provide their comments about the draft scope of work, to allow the department to listen to those comments. It's important for all voices to be heard today. Next slide. On to the focus of today's meeting, which will be divided into 3 parts. During the first part, the applicant team will give a brief overview of the Herkimer-Williams proposal, including a presentation by a representative of PHA, the environmental consultant for the proposal, who will summarize the draft scope of work. During the second part of the meeting, the department will receive comments from elected officials, government agencies, and those speaking on behalf of the community board. And then during the third and final part of the meeting, the department will receive comments from the general public. The meeting will only end when everyone who signed up to provide testimony has had an opportunity to do so. Next slide. On to a few logistics for today's meeting. Again, this protocol is intended to ensure that everyone has a chance to speak and all voices can be heard. If you wish to speak and plan to access the meeting online using a computer, tablet, or smartphone, please do register online on the Herkimer-Williams Public Scoping Meeting page of the NYC Engage portal. The website is shown here, www.nyc.gov/NYC-Engage. Once you've registered through that page, a link to join us through this Zoom and provide your testimony will be emailed to you after you've completed that registration process. We will then add you to our speakers list. Next slide. When it is your turn to speak, your name will be called and you will be promoted to panelist. This will allow you to unmute your microphone and the ability to turn on your camera. There will be a short period where it appears you're no longer in the meeting. Don't be alarmed. You'll automatically rejoin the Zoom meeting as a panelist. You will be asked to convey your remarks to allow us to hear from everyone who wishes to speak. We ask you to limit your remarks to 3 minutes. A 3-minute countdown timer will run on the screen if you're participating online. And at the 3-minute mark, your time will expire. At that time, you'll be asked to conclude your remarks. Please note that promoting speakers does take a moment, so please be patient. And as a reminder, if you choose to turn on your camera, we will be able to see you. Next slide. An additional note of instructions for those of you joining by phone. If you wish to provide testimony via telephone, please select *9 when prompted. Please listen for me to call out the last 3 digits of your phone number. At that point, you'll be given the temporary ability to share your testimony. You must press *6 to mute your telephone, and we will be able to hear you speak. When your testimony is complete or your 3 minutes have expired, whichever comes first, you must press *6 to mute yourself. We encourage dial-in participants who do wish to provide testimony to register via phone using the dial-in participant hotline. The information was shown at the beginning of the screen, and we will go back to that. Please note, again, muting and unmuting speakers does take a moment, so we appreciate your patience. Next slide. On to time limits. Speakers from the general public have 3 minutes to provide their testimony. There are a few exceptions to the 3-minute time limit. Elected officials, for example, are given the courtesy of jumping to the front of the queue and are not limited to 3 minutes. To those of you joining us on live stream and wishing to provide testimony, please be mindful of potential background noise during your testimony. Please make sure that the live stream is muted when you begin to avoid hearing an echo. Next slide. If you wish to submit written testimony, it can be submitted to the Department of City Planning. Our mailing address is shown here, 120 Broadway, 31st floor, New York, New York, 10271. Attention, Stephanie Shalou. We also have an email address set up for this project if you'd like to provide testimony and comments via email. The email address is shown here as well, 24dcp055k_dl@planning.nyc.gov. This information can also be found on the NYC Engage portal and the DCP website. As a reminder, we will accept the written comments through 5 p.m. Friday, December 29th, 2023. And next slide. All right, if you missed any of the instructions on how to participate this afternoon, please visit www.nyc.gov/NYC-Engage for instructions on how to participate and provide testimony. We are now going to move on to the first part of the meeting where the applicant will provide an overview of the proposed project. This will be followed by the environmental consultant who will summarize the draft scope of work. Vivian, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the Department of City Planning for having us here today. My name is Vivian Liao, and I am one of the principals of Totem. A number of folks on our project team are also here today, and some of them you will get the chance to hear from momentarily. Next slide. First, an introduction to Totem. We are a Brooklyn-based real estate development firm that approaches the building process in a community-driven way. Our inclusive developments focus on a few key principles, which you see outlined here on this slide, around affordability, economic mobility, innovative partnerships, and regenerative design. Next slide. We are here today to talk about our project at Broadway Junction, one of the city's busiest transit hubs, sitting at the intersection of 5 major subway lines, 6 bus routes, and the Long Island Railroad. Next slide. The site itself is located at the nexus of 7 neighborhoods, but the area remains underutilized today with insufficient housing and limited access to retail, commercial, and public space. Next slide. To address this, there have been a number of community planning studies throughout the years that have articulated the types of improvements desired by local stakeholders. Next slide. In developing our proposal, our team studied these previous community visions and distilled the findings into a few buckets that you see outlined here, which center largely on the desire for improved services and amenities, job and training opportunities, and enhanced open space. Next slide, please. It's also important to point out the context of the project against the backdrop of the 2016 rezoning, which you see outlined here to the east and west of our site, which is in the yellow. Additionally, the East New York Industrial Business Zone sits to the south of our site area, which was left out of the 2016 rezoning. Next slide, please. In recent years, following the rezoning, there has been an increasing focus from the public sector on this area around Broadway Junction. Next slide, please. You'll see on this map, this highlights some of the most recent public improvements, including more than $500 million being invested by the city, MTA, and federal government into streetscape enhancements and ADA accessibility improvements at and around Broadway Junction. Next slide. As a firm, Totem specializes in community-driven development, and our approach is one that works with the community from the start to shape projects that benefit area residents. In this case, we have been engaged over the past 2 years with local stakeholders, starting with a town hall held in March of 2022, and subsequent meetings and events with more than 75 community groups, residents, and businesses. Next slide. We also worked closely with the Local Development Corporation of East New York to conduct a survey of Broadway Junction residents and visitors to inquire about local desires for the area. Not surprisingly, top concerns articulated by respondents focused on the need for affordable housing opportunities, job and training, and more places to shop, all of which leads us to the current proposal for Herkimer-Williams, which I'm going to turn over to my colleague Liz Cannella to walk you through. Next slide, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Viv. My name is Liz Cannella. I'm the project manager for Herkimer-Williams at Totem. So here you'll see an aerial shot of Broadway Junction. The white dotted line outlines the proposed rezoning area. As you can see, the site is uniquely situated between the Broadway Junction train station to the north and the Long Island Railroad East New York stop to the south. Van Sinderen, Atlantic, East New York Ave, and Fulton bind the site. Next slide, please. Here's a even more zoomed in version of the rezoning outlined in red here with the existing conditions. In light of the current zoning for low density industrial, many of the existing lots are used for storage. Most of the sites are owned by our JV at Totem, outlined in yellow on the map, and are used for storage of cars, materials, including sand, gravel, dirt, all of this next to a major transit hub. The 2 sites outlined in light gray are used by Calvary Baptist Church at MTA, respectively. MTA uses the facility as a machine shop to make repairs to the MetroCard machines that are currently being phased out throughout the system. New York City Transit also owns the area directly beneath the elevated train, bifurcating the site, mainly used for vehicle parking today. Those parcels will not be built on due to this rezoning proposal. Next slide. Here's a quick overview of the proposed benefits of Herkimer-Williams. These were crafted to align with the community visioning goals Vivian highlighted earlier. These include up to 600 units of 100% affordable housing, nearly 250,000 square feet for retail ranging in size to accommodate a diversity of retailers from mom and pop shops to local entrepreneurs to destination retail like grocery stores and kids activities. Community facility space to accommodate local nonprofits, incubators, and cultural and possible educational institutions like healthcare, educational institutions, healthcare, and community services. Potentially the most important here is that there is significant new space for jobs and employers to set up shop at Broadway Junction. And finally, the contribution of privately owned land to help augment and unlock new open space in and around the planned public investment for the junction. Next slide. In order to facilitate this vision, we're requesting the following land use actions. The first is a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area in orange on this slide from N12 manufacturing to C64 commercial district and M16 manufacturing district. The change permits higher density with a mix of manufacturing, commercial, residential, and community facility uses. The second is a zoning text amendment to create mandatory inclusionary housing that would require the development of affordable housing, as well as change the ownership criteria for the large scale to accommodate MTA properties. The third is a special permit within the large scale that would create a better site plan, essentially including modifications to building height and setback regulations and rear yard requirements applicable to the unique geometry and configuration of the site. Next slide. Continuing on the land use actions would be a city map, a change to the city map involving the elimination and closing of a portion of Herkimer Street between Williams Place and Fulton. This preserves Herkimer between Van Sinderen and Williams, but restores the original unified configuration of blocks 1577, which you see on the screen. Finally, there's a special permit for a large retail establishment in the M16 district to provide leasing opportunities for large department stores and transit-oriented shopping. Next slide. Cumulatively, these land use actions will facilitate in the proposed plan you see here, phased over 10 years. Phase 1 and 2, which are sites B and C, would include up to 600 units of affordable housing, space for an industrial incubator and community gathering. This space is intended to speed up the delivery of more job-intensive units later in the development phases, as well as 65,000 square feet of space for neighborhood-centric retail and publicly accessible open space. Phase 3, or Site D here, would include significant opportunities for employers and institutional uses to set up shop at Broadway Junction by creating approximately 330,000 square feet of commercial space for employers, as well as approximately 100,000 square feet of community facility space that we hope to use to attract institutional anchors like colleges, universities, or trade schools. Finally, Site E may be developed with new commercial, industrial, and retail space or kept as is in the short term, but the environmental analysis will study the level of density displayed here to enable the entirety of the phasing plan. Next slide. Finally, before I turn it over to Joe at PHA to run through the more technical scoping slides, I want to share the project timeline to remind everyone of where we are. We hope to conclude the EIS review starting today in about 6 to 8 months, and hope to certify into ULURP sometime in 2024. Thank you all for your time. I'll turn it over to Joe now. Next slide.
Thank you, Liz. Good afternoon. My name is Joseph McKenzie from Philip Habib and Associates, the firm that prepared the draft scope of work and will be preparing the draft Environmental Impact Statement, or DEIS. I will provide an overview of the draft scope of work, which provides the framework for how the DEIS will be prepared. Next slide, please. The DEIS will be consistent with the guidance of the latest version of the City Environmental Quality Review Technical Manual, also referred to as the CEQR Technical Manual. The CEQR Technical Manual is the standard guidance document for environmental analysis and review in the City of New York. CEQR is a disclosure process by which decision makers evaluate the potential environmental consequences before approving a discretionary action. CEQR compares the future no action condition to the future with action condition through a reasonable worst case development scenario. The EIS will analyze the incremental changes that could reasonably be expected to occur if the proposed actions are adopted. Public comments will be incorporated into a final scope of work. Then a DEIS will be prepared in accordance with the final scope of work, which will then be published for public review and comment. Once published, a public hearing will be held on the DEIS, in which all comments received during the hearing will be incorporated into the final environmental impact statement, or FEIS. Next slide, please. As detailed in the draft scope of work, a reasonable worst case development scenario was established for the 2036 analysis year. In the no action condition, it is anticipated that the on-site conditions would remain unchanged from existing conditions. In the with action condition, it is assumed that 4 new buildings, buildings B, C, D, and E, comprising the proposed development, will be completed and fully occupied on the development site within the project area. As was summarized earlier in this presentation, the proposed development will contain a combined total of approximately 1.7 million gross square feet of building space, comprising approximately 600 dwelling units, as well as commercial office and retail space, light industrial space, community facility space, accessory parking, and publicly accessible area space, or PAA. Pursuant to the city's MIH program, up to 25 to 30% of the proposed dwelling units would be designated as permanently affordable at an average of 60 to 80% of the area median income, depending on the selected option. In addition, consistent with the proposed LSGD special permit plans, the applicant could develop additional community facility uses in Building D, as well as additional light industrial development, as well as additional light industrial uses in Building E. Thus, under the reasonable worst case development scenario, the proposed development could be developed with a combined total of approximately 1.9 million gross square feet of building space. As such, where applicable, the reasonable worst case development scenario will consider the environmental effects of Building B containing additional community facility uses and Building E containing additional light industrial uses when such a scenario represents the worst case for conservative analysis purposes. Next slide, please. As shown in this table, when comparing the no action condition to the with action condition under the proposed development, the proposed actions are expected to result in a net addition of approximately 540,000 gross square feet of residential space, about 636 dwelling units, of which 159 to 191 units would be designated as permanently affordable pursuant to the MIH program, 739 gross square feet of commercial office space, 248,000 gross square feet of commercial retail space, 10,400 gross square feet of light industrial space, 6,000 gross square feet of community facility space, 219 parking spaces, 24,500 square feet of PAA space, as well as a net loss of approximately 50,400 gross square feet of manufacturing space. In terms of population, the proposed development could generate up to approximately 1,845 incremental residents, as well as 3,709 incremental workers within the project area as compared to the no action condition. In addition, as I mentioned previously, consistent with the proposed LSGD special permit plans, the applicant could develop additional community facility uses in Building D, as well as additional light industrial uses in Building E. As such, where applicable, the reasonable worst case development scenario would consider the environmental effects of Building D containing additional community facility uses and Building E containing additional light industrial uses when such a scenario represents the worst case for conservative analysis purposes. Next slide, please. Additionally, in the event the applicant chooses to not exercise the LSGD special permit, the proposed actions would increase the maximum permitted residential floor area ratio on the development site to approximately 8.1, and thus, in accordance with CEQR, a second reasonable worst case development scenario, known as the alternate residential scenario, will be assessed as part of the EIS. Similar to the proposed development, 4 new buildings, buildings B, C, D, and E, would be analyzed under the alternate residential scenario. The alternate residential scenario will contain a combined total of approximately 1.9 million gross square feet of total space, including approximately 1,200 dwelling units, of which approximately 305 to 365 units would be designated as permanently affordable pursuant to the MIH program, as well as commercial office and retail space, light industrial space, community facility space, accessory parking, and publicly accessible area. Next slide, please. Under the alternate residential scenario, as shown in this table, the proposed actions are expected to result in the net addition of approximately 1 million gross square feet of residential uses, equivalent to approximately 1,218 total dwelling units, of which 305 to 365 would be designated as permanently affordable, 272,000 gross square feet of commercial office space, 265,000 gross square feet of commercial retail space, 251,000 gross square feet of light industrial space, 6,000 gross square feet of community facility space, 219 parking spaces, 24,500 square feet of publicly accessible area, as well as the net loss of approximately 50,400 gross square feet of manufacturing space. In terms of population, the alternate residential scenario could generate up to approximately 3,533 incremental residents and approximately 2,157 incremental workers within the project area as compared to the no action condition. With the reasonable worst case development scenarios established and using criteria outlined in the CEQR technical manual, the EIS will determine if significant adverse impacts would occur. Next slide, please. As detailed in the draft scope of work and shown on the slide, the proposed actions require consideration of 17 of the 19 impact categories outlined in the CEQR technical manual. The draft scope of work provides a detailed outline of how these 17 technical areas will be examined, and for each of the technical areas, it identifies study areas, types of data to be gathered, and how these data would be analyzed, and the potential impacts quantified when appropriate. Per the guidance of the CEQR technical manual, the proposed actions would not warrant analysis for the natural resources and energy technical areas. I will now briefly discuss a few of the technical areas to be analyzed in the DEIS. For example, as the proposed actions would introduce new residents to the area, an analysis of socioeconomic conditions, as well as public schools, libraries, and child care centers will be warranted. The residents introduced to the area by the proposed actions would also increase demand for use of publicly accessible open spaces, and therefore an analysis of open space resources is warranted. The proposed actions would also result in an increase in the number of vehicular trips and increased ridership on mass transit facilities, as well as affect pedestrian movements in the area due to the increased number of residents and workers under both reasonable worst case development scenarios. Therefore, a detailed transportation analysis will be included in the DEIS, which will analyze the changes to traffic, transit, pedestrian, street user safety, and parking conditions as a result of the proposed actions. Due to the increase in the number of vehicular trips within the area, the DEIS will also study the project-generated effects on ambient noise and air quality conditions as a result of mobile sources. In addition, both the noise and air quality analyses will study the effects of stationary sources. Construction of the proposed development is expected to occur in a phased way over 4 phases and take approximately 10 years to build, and is therefore considered long-term pursuant to the CEQR technical manual. As such, the DEIS will evaluate the duration and severity of the disruption or inconvenience to nearby sensitive receptors as a consequence of the proposed development's construction. The construction analysis will provide a description of the proposed construction program and phasing, and will examine the potential long-term construction impacts of the proposed development on transportation systems, as well as air quality and noise conditions. Next slide, please. In addition, the DEIS will include a mitigation chapter, which describes mitigation measures to address any significant adverse impacts that are identified in the DEIS. Where impacts cannot be mitigated, they will be identified as unavoidable adverse impacts. An alternative chapter will also be included in the DEIS to evaluate alternative development proposals that may reduce or eliminate any significant adverse impacts. The alternatives are usually defined when the full extent of a proposed action's impacts have been determined. As of now, the DEIS is expected to study a no-action alternative, which assumes the project area would remain as under existing conditions, as well as a no significant adverse impacts alternative, which presents a scenario where all action-generated impacts are either eliminated or avoided. Additional alternatives may be developed during the scoping process in coordination with the lead agency. Finally, a chapter summarizing all comments on the draft scope of work and DEIS will be included The draft scope of work can be viewed in its entirety online on DCP's website, as seen at the bottom of this slide. Thank you for your time. This marks the end of the applicant's presentation on the Herkimer-Williams proposal and overview of the CEQR framework. And with that, I'll pass it back over to Stephanie at DCP. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to the applicant team. Next slide. All right, we will now move on to part 2 of the scoping meeting. At this time, we will be receiving testimony from elected officials, community board leaders, and government agencies. When it's your turn to speak, your name will be called and you'll be promoted to panelist. This will allow you to unmute your microphone and the ability to turn on your camera. There will be a short period that it appears you're no longer in the meeting. Don't be alarmed, you'll automatically rejoin the meeting as a panelist. If anyone experiences technical issues that prevent you from sharing your testimony, we're going to pause, see if we can resolve the issue quickly, and then move on to the next speaker if we're not able to allow troubleshooting to happen in the background. We will come back to you if you are not able to provide your testimony. We do have our how-to guides on the NYC Engage website for assistance. You can also call in our dial-in participant hotline. You can call any of the numbers shown at the top of this screen, including 877-853-5247. When prompted for the meeting ID, dial the number shown at the bottom of the screen, 618-237-7396. And when prompted for a password, dial 1. All right, in this first group of speakers, we are joined today by Councilmember Sandy Nurse. So Councilmember, we are going to promote you to panelist and you will be given the opportunity to share your testimony.
Hi, thank you.
Hi, welcome.
Okay, I will try not to go too far beyond the 3 minutes, but appreciate the opportunity to skip the line. So thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak today on the Herkimer-Williams project, and appreciate the presentation. My testimony today will be brief, hopefully, but I will submit a longer, more in-depth testimony into the record. Thank you. A project of this magnitude will undoubtedly impact the surrounding community in many ways, and I look forward to seeing the full results of the EIS and the racial equity report. I want to highlight the different points of concern as well as the areas that I believe deserve a deeper analysis as DCP considers this application. So on the location analysis, the project area sits at the intersection of 3 community boards, that's 4, 5, and 16, all of which are communities of color. Both the EIS and the racial equity report will be important guides to determine the risks and potential effects of this project, particularly on the neighborhoods, primarily Black and Brown residents. This report will use data from the city's Equitable Development Data Explorer, which, while a vital tool, incorrectly locates the project area in Community Board 16 as opposed to Community Board 5. And it's just really important to correct this, but also to utilize data from at least Community Boards 5 and 16 in order to fully grasp the project's potential impacts on the local community. And if there is space, I would consider a little bit of 4 as well, just because it's all coming together. Socioeconomic concerns. One of my primary concerns is the risk of residential displacement. The EAS concludes there will be no direct residential displacement, but rather potential indirect residential displacement, presumably due to ensuing speculation and market pressure. But speculation, displacement, and housing insecurity is already happening now. Community boards 5 and 16 rank relatively high on the Association for Neighborhood Development's housing risk chart, with homeowners and tenants alike really barely surviving in today's housing market. Over 1,700 people currently live in Census Tract 367, which encompasses the entire project area, and nearly 50% of these residents are Black, 36.5% are Hispanic. And if you zoom out a little bit more than 28,000 residents live within a half mile of this project site. 84% of them are renters, and over 86% of whom are Black and Hispanic. So the median household income for the 8 census tracts immediately surrounding the project area is just over 40,000, which is considered very low and extremely low income for 1- and 4-person households, respectively. The racial and class demographics speak to larger housing insecurity in the local community boards. In 2022, for example, community boards 16 and 5 saw 793 and over 1,000 people enter the shelter system, respectively. And this project really has the potential to catalyze further real estate speculation and housing insecurity. And I just urge the department to look critically at this issue. Zoning. By any measure, my neighbors are facing extreme housing precarity. The project won't just affect the residential real estate market. The applicant is seeking a fairly broad rezoning that would allow for commercial office towers, large-scale base retail, as well as light manufacturing space. And this retail will seemingly accommodate big box stores more so than local retailers. And I strongly urge DCP to carefully analyze the potential displacement risks this retail space would create for the local economy, and particularly for the Fulton Street commercial corridor in Community Board 5. The proposed rezoning would also allow for the highest allowable residential and commercial density, inclusive of the MIH bonus. The proposed rezoning will technically allow for 636 units, as opposed to the proposed 596 units, which would equate to dozens more market rates units. And the alternate residential scenario, on the other hand, in which a special permit would not be granted under the rezoning, could facilitate not 596 units, but 1,218 mostly unaffordable market rate units. So this, of course, would be unacceptable, and I am concerned that without binding legal mechanisms that really enshrine the proposed affordability and corresponding unit count, the development could look very different from what is proposed. So as such, the department should carefully analyze the maximum build out for each scenario, as well as their potential implications on the surrounding community, including analyses on what would happen if the project were to become unviable partway through construction. Just 2 more points, and I'm really trying to go fast. Commercial office density. I also have vocalized my concern about the project's commercial density. As proposed, the project would create over 1 million gross square feet in commercial space, 750,000 of which would be for commercial offices. The project will attempt to induce demand for this commercial space, office space, citing the proximity to mass transit, a cheaper local housing stock, upcoming public realm investments as enticing amenities. And while the labor market will undoubtedly change in years to come, I question the rationale for this level of office space. Office vacancy still remains high following the height of the pandemic. We're seeing in Manhattan rates at a little bit higher, around 22%, but outer borough office vacancy rates are lower, around 13%. And so, you know, city budget analysts offer a dim outlook, with some projecting vacancy rates hovering around 20% in the years to come. So all that to say is currently we do not have the evidence to justify new high-rise commercial office buildings. And considering the changing relationship to in-person office work, I am skeptical that such a gamble would pay off. I urge you all to fully examine the speculative nature of this part of the proposal and the consequences it can have. Lastly, on the construction timeline, coinciding construction timelines are a concern that I do think can be mitigated, but will require some attention. According to the draft scope of work, The project would have 4 development stages beginning in 2026 and last about 10 years. We also have a number of other projects, construction projects happening at the same time. The MTA's ADA accessibility and streetscape work is expected to begin next year and take around 5 years to complete. Additionally, the city's public realm improvements, while admittedly in its beginning stages, will take many years to complete once in motion. All of these projects' construction timelines will overlap for years and occur within 1,000 feet of each other. And I really think it's essential that the EIS examine how these coinciding construction timelines could affect local residents, infrastructure, businesses, and pedestrians. So my written testimony will include more details on the above issues. It's quite lengthy. I just apologies in advance, but we're very pleased to have put so much time and effort into it, including the proposed retail and open space. But I want to close by saying that East New York residents absolutely deserve modern transit, beautiful green spaces, quality affordable housing, and safe streets. So, we really welcome the investments that have been coming. Thankfully, we are finally seeing them, and all of which will create their own challenges. So we're really going to need strong coordination, but it is not enough to just study these effects. We really need to plan for them. And as we consider this project, I really look forward to engaging city and state partners on how to reinforce our anti-displacement measures while creating new tools and programs to retain community wealth, promote racial equity, and facilitate community ownership. So thank you all again. I just want to thank everybody who has been engaged in this process for just the open communication and response to questions, and the transparency that everyone, I think, is trying to bring to these projects, as well as the proactiveness. And just thank you to the director for accepting my testimony today, and to all community members present here making their voices heard.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember, for your thoughtful testimony. We look forward to the written testimony, and thank you so much for being the part of this meeting today. We do not have any other speakers that are registered in this first group of elected officials, those speaking on behalf of the community board or government agencies. So at this time, we will move to the third part of the public scoping meeting, where members of the general public will be invited to speak for up to 3 minutes in the order that they registered. A 3-minute time tracker, thank you to our production team, will be displayed on this screen. When it's your turn to speak again, excuse me, your name will be called and you will be promoted to panelist. You will be allowed to unmute your microphone and turn on your camera if you wish. There is a short period it appears you're no longer in the meeting, but you'll automatically rejoin. Please remember that after your 3 minutes have passed, you will be asked to conclude your remarks. And again, if anyone experiences technical issues, we'll pause for a moment, see if we can quickly resolve, and then move on to allow troubleshooting to happen in the background. Please refer to NYC Engage if you have any difficulties and need assistance with how to participate today. Okay, we will move on to our list of registered speakers. Our first speaker is Michelle Neugbauer, to be followed by Bill Wilkins and then Colvin Granum. Michelle Neugbauer, you are our first speaker, and please feel free to correct pronunciation if I'm mispronouncing anyone's name.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Excellent. My name is Michelle Neugebauer. I'm the Executive Director of the Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation. We're a 40-year-old not-for-profit community development organization that has served the East New York area with distinction. I'm also a member of the steering committee of the Coalition for Community Advancement. We are a grassroots coalition of residents, both homeowners and renters, small businesses, and houses of worship that came together in response to the East New York rezoning. The coalition fights for justice for East New York. We organize and mobilize against displacement, gentrification, and unjust policies and systems. We are deeply concerned about the displacement that would be caused by this proposed development, displacement of residents, small businesses, and manufacturers. And we urge the Department of City Planning to require that the environmental impact study seriously consider what big box retail and likely unaffordable commercial rents will have on local small businesses. Our organization has supported the 346 small businesses on Fulton Street from Pennsylvania Avenue to the Queens border for over 4 decades. 95% of these small businesses are Black, Latino, and Asian owned. 75% of these merchants rent their storefronts. They provide essential convenience goods and services to the residents of East New York. So we ask that through the EIS, you study what the impacts will be on our neighborhood commercial corridors. You look at the current commercial vacancy rate. Every affordable housing development in East New York has a vacant storefront. We ask that you look at how HPD is underwriting these commercial rents because they are unaffordable to mom and pop immigrant LMI entrepreneurs in our neighborhood. As the council member said, according to the city's own equitable development reporting tool, our neighborhood is at high risk of displacement. So we ask, in looking at residential displacement, the commission takes and the EIS providers take into account current eviction rates of doubling and tripling up in our local small homes, the number of families that our community boards are already sending to the shelter system. We ask that the EIS look at the proposed affordable housing and if it will truly be affordable to the people in the neighborhood and permanently affordable, that you look at the number of families that currently receive rental subsidies and their inability to find affordable homes in the neighborhood. And then lastly, to look at the impact on LMI, senior, and BIPOC homeowners. Foreclosure rates need to be examined, and the lack of displacement prevention tools the city has holds no hope that we can continue to hold on with these incredible real estate speculative actions. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and for providing your testimony. If you have written comments as well, of course, we'd welcome those as well. All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Bill Wilkins, followed by Colvin Granum, followed by Daryl Holan. Bill Wilkins, you'll be our next speaker.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, welcome.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. As stated, my name is Bill Wilkins. I'm the Executive Director for the Local Development Corporation of East New York. And actually, I trump Michelle Nugerbauer because we're celebrating 45 years since.
Sorry, excuse me, Bill. Sorry to interrupt you. We're just going to wait for a second when we get back to our countdown clock here on our production screen.
I thought you were yielding me 2 extra minutes.
We'll just wait a moment to get to the correct slide. Thanks for your patience.
No worries.
All right, there we go. Please pick up where you were.
Okay, as stated, I'm the Executive Director of the LDC of East New York. Also, the East Brooklyn Business Improvement District, which is celebrating 40 years of service as a business improvement district and one of the first bids in New York City, and also the first industrial bid in New York City. Also, I'm the Executive Director for East New York Housing Development Corporation, which has over 600 units of affordable housing. Additionally, I've worked at the Local Development Corporation for over 23 years. Our mission is to grow businesses, change lives, and strengthening communities. Additionally, I've also resided in East New York for over 33 years. Close to a decade ago, I can remember extending office space to the Urban Land Institute for a TAP, a technical assistance panel on Broadway Junction. And they say that the wheels of justice turn slow. 10 years fast forward, Broadway Junction, we all can agree, is a hot mess, but finally, we have a meaningful action, and yes, the train has left the station. Broadway Junction occupies a significant position in New York City's transit network, and crossroads for over 8,000 New Yorkers daily. As a regional transit hub, Broadway Junction has immense potential and opportunity to capture the activity of thousands. There are unique opportunities to leverage, as well as significant challenges to address for a cohesive vision for the area. I'd be the first to tell you there is well-founded distrust of both government and private developers in the community. I share many of these sentiments as a resident residing in an under-resourced and neglected community, but I believe Herkimer-Williams is a field of dreams and a turning point for East New York. For the past 2 years, I've seen Totem's intelligent bottom-up approach in development that incorporates the ideas of many and brings into the envelope a keen understanding of the needs of the community. Totem purports they can accomplish both growth and renewal while ensuring my neighbors stay in the neighborhood and have access to these new resources. That is why I'm so encouraged by Totem's commitment to building 100% affordable housing as part of Herkimer-Williams. I support the Herkimer-Williams development, and I thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony and for being here today. All right, our next speaker is Colvin Granum, followed by Daryl Holen, followed by Christine Valentine. Colvin Granum, you're our next speaker.
Hello, can you see or hear?
We can hear you. I don't think we see you.
Okay. Can you
There
see
we
me?
go. Yes, hello, welcome.
Hello, good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I am, as you know, my name is Colvin Granum, and I'm a son of Central Brooklyn, having been born and raised there. I had the honor of serving as the president and chief executive officer of Bedford-Stuyvesant Restoration for more than 2 decades. And prior to that, I served as the founder, president and chief executive officer of Bridge Street Development Corporation. The bulk of my career has been dedicated to improving the financial strength and resilience of New Yorkers and Brooklynites in particular. I have crafted and supported programs to increase financial inclusion and equitable real estate development. For decades, Black and brown communities in Brooklyn have been shortchanged by systemic disinvestment and economic marginalization. This has hindered generations of families from achieving upward economic mobility. Broadway Junction is one of the city's busiest transit hubs, but in its current condition, it is a tangible reminder of the enduring legacy of disinvestment and marginalization. For decades, residents and elected officials have struggled to improve the conditions at Broadway Junction. The junction is an underperforming asset and has the potential to be transformed into a critical engine for creating thousands of jobs and hundreds of housing units, strengthening local infrastructure to attract long-term investment and boosting the overall well-being of residents. Totem's Herkimer-Williams plan aims to do just that. The plan is an all-encompassing vision to deliver 600 units of housing, in addition to delivering attractive open space, arts and cultural facilities, flexible community space, retail destinations, office space, maker space, and much more. Totem is advancing an inclusive planning process, which has included extensive community outreach for the past 2 years, initiating conversations with local residents, businesses, and nonprofits to gather their input. Totem has also co-sponsored a town hall meeting in partnership with Council Member Nurse, who was just here, and has been in consistent dialogue with the community board. These efforts are intended to ensure community-driven development at Broadway Junction, and thus far, Totem has proven itself as a willing and capable partner to deliver on the community's vision for this site. The residents and businesses of the community surrounding Broadway Junction deserve the economic, social, and psychological benefits that will be generated by the comprehensive development of Broadway Junction as proposed by Totem based on the input of the community. I urge city planning to move forward with this critical vision to deliver equitable growth for the residents. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your testimony and for being here. We'll move to our next speaker, Daryl Holen, followed by Christine Valentine, followed by Vicki Bergquist. Daryl Holen, you'll be our next speaker. We'll promote you to panelist and you'll be given the opportunity to share your testimony. Hi, welcome, Daryl.
Okay, I'm here.
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. Let me see. Wait a minute. Okay, you can see me now too, right?
Yes, welcome.
Okay. Am I on the clock? Should I go?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Darren Holland and I work as an industrial business service provider for the Business Outreach Center Network. We are proud to serve the industrial and manufacturing businesses in Eastern Brooklyn, with a focus on businesses located in the East New York and Flatlands Fairfield industrial business zones. East New York has a rich tradition of industrial and manufacturing businesses, which have historically provided quality jobs and entrepreneurial opportunities for the local community. On average, industrial jobs pay almost twice as much as jobs in the service and retail sectors, and are available to people who lack access to higher education. The Herkimer-Williams development on Broadway Junction is located directly adjacent to the East New York Industrial Business Zone, which is why we welcome the opportunity to support the industrial incubator as part of this project. At this moment, there is a lack of modern, flexible, and affordable space for small industrial businesses and industrial entrepreneurs in the East New York area. By providing flexible space, technical assistance, and access to relevant programming and resources in one location, we believe that this hub can be a conduit for growing new local businesses in the East New York area. We look forward to the continued engagement and opportunity to advocate for the advancement of local East New York industrial businesses, entrepreneurs, and the quality of jobs they create. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony and for taking time out of your day. All right, our next speaker is going to be Christine Valentine, followed by Vicki Bergquist, followed by Peter Tulloch.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Okay. Hi, I'm Reverend Christine Valentine, and I am on the steering committee of the East New York Coalition for Community Advancement, as well as on the board of New Lots Nehemiah Homeowners Association. And my concern is the environment. Sunlight can entice outdoor activities, support vegetation, enhance agricultural features. So with the building as being as high as it is, I'm worried about the shadows that would impose on a renovation of the two new public plazas that we have, as well as the Callahan Kelly playground, and also as well as, if the children in the yard playing in that area, sunlight is very important. Also, this area of East New York and Brownsville, we have a high level of asthmatics, other respiratory diseases, diabetes rates are high. So I'd like to know if you did a study about the health consequences from the environment dealing with the massive construction that's going to be going on that would affect the children as well as adults that have asthma. Also, I would like to know if, the trains, our trains in New York are like 60 to 75 feet long, 10 to 12 feet wide, and 12 to 15 feet high. So I saw the building was on one side of the train station and the other building was on the other side that you're proposing to build. These four buildings they're high. So have you done any research regarding the noise of the trains, which is going to be 24 hours, 7 days a week, that whoever's living in these homes will hear this noise? Would the noise impact have on people? Well, what about families who want to move into these buildings that you said you're supposed to have the units? What about infants? I mean, have you done research to see how will this affect them? That's really the main concern of what we have. So we need further study on the noises for all individuals who will be living in that area. And then what about the side effects of high voltage power lines? You know, can cause serious injuries or death to person. Electricity can flash over a gap or so any equipment or person or any kind of distance with these power lines can still be in danger. We have storms. We've been having warnings lately for these high winds that we have been having lately. So the overhead electric lines may fall to the ground and thus create danger in the surrounding area. And you're putting up these 4 buildings in this area where we have all these train station lines. So main thing I wanted to say was we need to just do further research on how would the shadows impose the renovation of the area? How would it affect the people? How would it affect with lack of sunlight? So these are the things that would really concern me and the rest of the people of the community about putting these 4 buildings in this area. I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony and for being here. As a reminder to everyone, the comments received here and those in writing will be responded to in the document that we issue, the final scope of work, explaining how these and other topics will be evaluated in the EIS. Thank you. Our next speaker is Vicki Bergquist, to be followed by Peter Tulloch, followed by Lettice Lane. Vicki Bergquist, you are our next speaker.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah. Hi. So my name is Vicki. I'm a resident and a homeowner in East New York, right by Broadway Junction. And I just appreciate the opportunity to express my support for this project. As a resident, I deeply understand and I echo the need for new affordable housing and economic opportunities for the community. So under the way I see it is, under the do nothing scenario, leaving the area as is, it doesn't change the growing pressure on housing in the area. In fact, there would only increase it because the upcoming infrastructure investment in Broadway Junction and the actual investments that are happening in the community, it's going to be amenities that people will be looking for. So I've already personally seen renters being pushed into the area from Bed-Stuy and Bushwick because of the increased rents over there. So I totally understand the worry of displacement, and I think that's a really important thing that we must consider. But if we do nothing and we don't invest in housing, it's going to happen because the fact that we have these broader economic situations happening that are forcing people to come into the community looking for cheaper rents, and it just pushes out people here. So I just want to echo the need for, when we look at this, we need to look at it in a long-term perspective, because these are things that are going to grow over time. The problems of displacement, the lack of economic jobs for people in the area, if we don't deal with it now, in 10 years, when the project is supposed to be done, it'll be worse. So I hope that when this report is being done, that it looks at the project as a forward-looking perspective and not backward-looking, meaning that the last 3 years we had the pandemic, high inflation, significant interest rates, which have impacted how retail, office spaces, commercial spaces are now. That doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen in 10 years. So I hope this report looks at a forward-looking perspective and we address issues now versus waiting 10 years later, when people do complain about, when people are dealing with housing and job opportunities in retail space. So I also want to say that Totem, as they've really engaged with the communities. They talked to me and some neighbors and just wanted our feedback. So I appreciate that. And it's really hard to find developers who want to engage with the community like that. So I hope that that good faith that they put into this project, you know, will continue on in the future. But I think that if you
Your
want to,
time is concluded if you have one more sentence.
yeah, no. So I just want to say I support this project and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Thank you. And if you have written comments, of course, we welcome to receive them. Our next speaker will be Peter Tulloch, to be followed by Latisse Lane, followed by Paul Harrison. Peter Tulloch, you are our next speaker. Hi, welcome. We're able to see you, but not hear you. We are not able to hear you. Are you joining via phone number? Does your phone number end in 729? You can just give a thumbs up. We can unmute your microphone. Let's try unmuting. Okay. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties, Peter, so we will reach out to you and see if we're able to hear your testimony another way. Okay. Our back of house, if someone can reach out to Peter and see if we can resolve some of those technical difficulties, we will come back to that speaker and we will move along. Our next speaker is Latisse Lane, followed by Paul Harrison, followed by Kathy Mercado. Latisse Lane, you are our next speaker.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, can you see and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, my camera's low. Good afternoon. My name is Latisse Lane, and I am a member of the East New York community. I'm also here representing the East New York Coalition for Community Advancement, the Economic Justice Group, as well as the Housing Justice Group. What I wanted to speak about today was the idea of the office spaces and how that will affect our community as a whole. So currently, we've had a lot of construction within the community over the last couple of years, and many of those sites offered the opportunity for office spaces. So that was one of the selling points for these buildings. But as a resident in the community, as we walk through the community, we're noticing that many of these housing units with the office spaces present, they're not being utilized. No one's using these spaces. No one's renting these spaces. So they're vacant, and they're vacant for years. So this idea that those spaces are going to generate income in the community has not actually done so as of yet whatsoever. So what we're concerned about is that how does the local businesses and the local entrepreneurs gain access to these community spaces? They are like these blank boxes, and because they have really small budgets, they really can't afford to rent these units, and because they can't afford it, they're left vacant until someone who is more of a franchise and has more resources is able to come in, renovate, build walls, things that the space does not come for a brand new business. And what happens is local mom and pop shops that would have loved to be able to get the opportunity to have access to these amazing spaces that are built in our communities and be able to use them, they're not getting them. They're going to someone else. So what happens is that the community is not being provided with the resource that we're told that is coming to the community. And then that being said, those people who are going to come and be able to take those properties, are they going to be hiring from within the community? Are they going to be providing job opportunities? Are they going to relocate from another neighborhood to bring their business to this neighborhood and bring it with their teams and all of the people who currently work for the business, but just relocating it? And so we're concerned about business relocation versus growth of business opportunities for the people in the community to be able to get the resources that they need. So again, having this idea that this office space will be available for us in this community in that area sounds amazing until we realize that our community members and the small businesses that are in this community not having access to those spaces because they don't have the basic resources to be able to transition into having these beautiful, amazing spaces that are coming to the community. So they're not going to end up going to community members. And that's one of the concerns we have as a coalition. And I wanted to come today to just testify and bring some awareness to that particular thing, because it sounds good until you realize that I live in a neighborhood, one of the newest neighborhoods in East New York, and there are at least 7 vacant storefronts that have not been rented whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and for raising this issue. Appreciate it. We will move on to our next speaker, Paul Harrison, followed by Kathy Mercado, followed by Shabazz Stewart. Paul Harrison, you are our next speaker.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Can you see and hear me?
We can see and hear you.
Okay, thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide some testimony today. I'm Paul Harrison. I am a resident. I live and work with my family in East New York. And I'd like to speak today for the 3 minutes specifically about the East New York Industrial Business Zone and the potential negative impacts of the proposed discretionary zoning actions. Just as has been mentioned, the East New York IBZ is directly adjacent to the proposed project area, and it shares transportation, energy, sewer, and water infrastructure. And the IBZ is a terribly important resource for the creation, maintenance, and growth of living wage jobs for Eastern Brooklyn. It's a very small IBZ. It provides a variety of M2 and M3 zoning for manufacturing and other commercial uses on 106 acres. It's the second smallest in the city. And we know that the city has established IBZs because they understand the dangers of having industrial uses and residential uses mixed, and the benefits of separating the noise and potentially dangerous activities that from the quiet enjoyment of residents, including the infants and the elderly. So I guess there are a couple of aspects of this that I'd like to delve into quickly. As far as socioeconomic conditions, as has been mentioned, East New York has a $40,000 AMI kind of area for a family, and this IBZ represents a really important opportunity for real living wage jobs, and like the Herkimer-Williams proposal environmental impact statement study to investigate how the creation of 2 million square feet and 400-foot towers right next to it is going to strengthen or potentially weaken the opportunities within the this engine of jobs in the IBZ. Also concerned about energy use. The IBZ is contains the sole electrical substation in the area. Con Edison is already close to limitations. Also concerned about parking in the area. I think it's has a limited amount of parking already. And so in summary, just wanted the environmental impact study to consider seriously the industrial business zone and the effects of this super tall project on the businesses and potential for jobs in that area.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. If you have written comments that you'd like to provide, please feel free to send them over. Our next speaker is Kathy Mercado, followed by Shabazz Stewart, followed by Kelvin Tate. Kathy Mercado, you are our next speaker. We are not seeing Kathy Mercado in the Zoom meeting, so we will wait a moment to see if she joins. And we will move on to our next speaker now, Shabazz Stewart. And just our next couple of speakers will be Kelvin Tate and Jack Knight as we move through our speakers list. Hello, welcome.
Hi, my name is Shabazz Stewart. I'm going to offer testimony in support of the project, enthusiastically so, from three perspectives. One, as a lifelong resident of Brooklyn, lived in Bed-Stuy near Broadway Junction for a fifth of my life. The other as a transportation advocate, someone who's deeply concerned about climate change mitigation, safe streets, and decongestion of traffic. And then last is as an entrepreneur, someone who's worked on secure bike parking, charging, and ancillary infrastructure for most of my adult life at this point. Look, I lived in Bed-Stuy. I'm not sure I can afford to live in Bed-Stuy or East New York anymore. I think that as we head into the 21st century, we are facing a crisis here. When I hear affordable housing, when I hear that it's a lot of affordable housing, I get excited, and I think this is exactly the kind of investment we need to be making. When I think about this project from the perspective of housing, but also in transit, I think it's exactly the kind of project we need. Like Broadway Junction is an underutilized asset. It's got a wealth of riches. I forget the term, but it's got a lot of access to transit, and it's exactly the kind of place where we should be encouraging developers like Totem to build high density, affordable housing. And as an entrepreneur, I think about this in context of how can I find high quality office space in Brooklyn, especially post-COVID, where a staff, particularly our staff, is more likely to want to work closer to where they live. And there's just not a lot of great options, especially as you get out further into East New York and points beyond. And so I can't think of many places outside of downtown Brooklyn where this kind of project could be successful in all three of those contexts. And so this is exactly what makes this project so compelling, those three intersection of those three contexts. And I'm super excited. And I want to just reiterate my enthusiastic support for the project and for the development team behind it.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for your testimony and for being here today. All right. Our next couple of speakers, as I mentioned, Kelvin Tate, Jack Knight, and Paul Mohammed. Kelvin Tate and Jack Knight do not appear to be in the room. We'll wait just a moment to see if they join. Again, the next speaker is Kelvin Tate, Jack Knight. All right, we will note that those two speakers are being skipped if they are able to join at a later time. Our next speaker is Paul Mohammed. All right, it looks like we are having some difficulty promoting our next speaker. Are we able to unmute this speaker from the attendees side? Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you?
Hello. Hi, welcome. Oh, it looks.
He's rejoining as a panelist.
Thank you.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Hello, welcome. Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you.
All right. This is Brother Paul Muhammad. How are you? Again, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm joining this is Paul Muhammad. I'm joining as a member of one of the founding members of the Coalition for Community Advancement. I'm also on the executive board of Community Board 5. I'm a 53-year resident family homeowner in East New York. And I'm also on the Health and Hospital board with Gotham Health Hospital. I'm calling in concern as part of the coalition and the member here, like I said, of this community for 53 years, dealing with the infrastructure concerns. This project poses at a time where we've been fighting dearly for ADA accessibility at Broadway Junction, that we're 32 years plus out of non-compliance at Broadway Junction. My family, members of my family, other residents who were challenged with different maladies that couldn't access Broadway Junction have been waiting for 32 years for federal compliance. Though we understand a private investor wants to build what he wants to build, we're dealing for the general public welfare of dealing with this. Now, dealing with that, these coinciding, I thank my councilman for stating there are 3 different projects that are scheduled to happen within this short period of time. Though this project is scoped for 10 years, it will impact what we're trying to do there for the quality of life that we're trying to have for the folks that live here, the indigenous people that are here. We're talking about the infrastructure. We're now in this community, or we host and have fellow members of the community that we host here that are from shelters that share our resources here, our fire, our health, hospitals, police, all these things are covering these shelters that have inundated in our community, as well as what we're looking at to proposal to house up to 1,200 more units of family members in this community. That in itself is a challenge. We're looking also to talk about the fact that in the future, we're trying to bring the Long Island Railroad online, because right now the corridor with Long Island Railroad does not really connect into the subway station. So imposing buildings before we get a corridor that's a safe, conductive corridor for Long Island Railroad will pose a hazard, probably an obstruction. So we're looking first at this proposal, those ambition and has a great audacity and possibilities to have some good. We're looking at the fact that right now it imposes maybe a problematic dealing with infrastructure to try to handle that type of building in this corridor. We're looking at also the fact that we would like to see things there, and we don't believe that we've had enough time to hash out what the community actually wants to the scoping plan of what they're proposing there. Again, the infrastructure affects the quality of life, what we have here, hospital, and the other things that support good quality of life, and the sewage and everything things else that need to be in place properly before you talk about housing people there and conducting business.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Thanks for being here and for providing your testimony. Our next speaker is Vernon J., to be followed by LaShawn Allen Muhammad. Vernon J., you are our next speaker. We will promote you to panelist. Hi, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. So my name is Vernon J. I'm the CEO and founder at Equity Platforms. I've been in commercial real estate for 18 years now and over 180 million in transactions. At Equity Platforms, we've developed the first digital token backed by affordable housing called Equity Coin. Our mission is simple, to help everyday community members build long-term generational wealth through rental income and home ownership. We do this through affordable housing development, crowdfunding, tokenization, and we see ourselves as the glue that connects community members with developers and elected officials. And as somebody who grew up in East New York, family roots here for almost 100 years, and we're true stakeholders. I strongly believe residents here deserve the opportunities for economic advancement that have passed us by for generations. This all starts with bringing more affordable housing to the area. Affordable housing is the foundation of a healthy community. Specifically, creating more housing at Broadway Junction is crucial to improve the quality of life and economic well-being for all East New Yorkers. The Herkimer-Williams project responds directly to these concerns. And in Totem's first phase alone, they'll be bringing 600 units of affordable housing to the community. And again, at Equity Platforms, we're driven by the overarching objective of helping East New Yorkers thrive, and new quality, and I want to emphasize quality, affordable housing will significantly contribute to this goal. Being in the real estate business for almost 2 decades, I've seen developers come in and come out for short-term gain. This is rampant, especially in communities of color throughout the union, throughout the country. But this project is not just for a short-term solution. I see it as a long-term investment in East New York's economic and housing landscape. And by laying the groundwork for sustainable growth, the project will leave a lasting positive impact on the community that truly cannot be understated. The one thing that I like to see is a comprehensive approach from Totem to ensure East New Yorkers have an opportunity to invest in the project in order to take part in the economic upside of this new development, because there will be a ton of upside here. So I urge all community members to support Totem's vision and be involved so that we can have a direct impact on the project's results. Thanks a lot for the time.
Thank you. Thanks for being here and for taking time out of your day. Our next speaker is LaShawn Allen Mohammed, followed by Rohan DeFreitas. LaShawn Allen Mohammed, you are our next speaker.
Good afternoon. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Greetings. My name is LaShawn Allen Mohammed. I serve as the Executive Director of the Central Brooklyn Economic Development Corporation, headquartered in Community District 16. For more than 30 years, our organization has been dedicated to forging pathways towards self-sufficiency for individuals, families, and small business owners in Central Brooklyn, which includes working directly with community residents to improve financial literacy and overall economic succession planning to ensure residents have access to opportunities to increase family income levels. The significance of the Herkimer-Williams proposal cannot be overstated. It heralds a potential transformative shift that extends well beyond Broadway Junction. We are excited to know that the project will yield additional commercial spaces as we work diligently to find brick and mortar homes for our business incubator participants. Situated at one of the city's busiest transit hubs, Broadway Junction holds immense potential with over 1 million workers residing within a 45-minute transit commute. We have yet to fully harness its power to uplift the residents of East New York and Brooklyn at large. However, this project symbolizes a move in the right direction. Herkimer-Williams represents a corrective force poised to empower entrepreneurs, bolster workforce development opportunities, and actualize the long-standing aspirations of locals for this site, which I believe we all heard from earlier testimonies. The infusion of new retail, manufacturing, and commercial development is not just about attracting businesses. It provides the opportunity for local residents to become a formal part of the community ecosystem through increased business development, which hopefully includes ownership of spaces, to Verna's point, as well as career and workforce development opportunities. This project stands as a linchpin for propelling equitable growth in Brooklyn and ensures the community directly benefits from economic development on par with the prosperity enjoyed by wealthier neighborhoods in the borough. In essence, the Herkimer-Williams initiative marks a pivotal stride towards creating a community where wealth is shared equitably, laying the groundwork for a more inclusive and prosperous Brooklyn for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony and for participating today. We do believe we have one of our prior speakers, Peter Tulloch, in the room, joined by phone. If we could allow that phone number ending in 729 to speak. And Peter Tulloch, if you could press *6 to unmute yourself, we should be able to hear you.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Welcome. Finally, I got in. How are you doing?
Good, good.
Okay, so my name is Peter Tulloch. Definitely excited about this project, and I'm, applauding Totem for just even the thought of trying to get this done. As somebody who lives in and around the neighborhood, I am excited about the affordable housing aspect of it, where the possibility of 600 affordable apartments or houses, that's amazing coming to the neighborhood. And I think, while I understand the challenges of getting these projects done, I do feel like this is something that is very, needed at this point. Selfishly, also, I'm a small business owner who has a huge space that is running programs, educating young adults between the ages of 18 and 24, and the idea that they're going to have nonprofit spaces and arts and culture spaces is very interesting to what I do, and I have started to engage with them on this because I think, the neighborhood needs this, and I think it would be a very good addition to everything that's going on, and the multiplicity of things that can happen from this one project means a whole lot to, how this goes into the future. And I think they've done a very good job at planning this out. Of course, I understand that there are challenges, and I've listened to everybody's conversation, and the one thing I do admire is that they're willing to engage and listen. And most importantly, if they're able to adjust, they've been more than, welcoming to see what can be done. So at this point, that's what I'd love to add, and I'd love to stay in touch and, as the project progress, and hopefully they'll get approved. So we'll have this happening very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony and for your patience. I'm glad we were able to come back to you and hear your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. We do have another speaker that was skipped back in the Zoom. So we will, Jack Knight appears to be in the Zoom now, if we are able to promote that speaker that we had previously skipped. Hi, welcome.
How you doing?
Good.
So, my name is Jack Knight. I was born and raised in East New York, Brooklyn. Lived everywhere in East New York. My family lived in Cypress Hills Projects, Herkimer and Brafton, moved around. And eventually I got into the arts and got into music. And now I'm the owner of a label called Made in East New York. And we have written and produced songs, people like Jennifer Lopez, Keisha Cole, Biggie Smalls, just a whole, Carl Thomas, Faith Evans, a whole slew of artists. And when I found out they was doing this project, I immediately reached out and said, what can we do together? And I think for me, I noticed other elements of this project. I mentioned climate change came up and a lot of different things in terms of displacing people. But the main portion of the project that was appealing to me was being able to set up an office, set up a creative space, set up a studio, set up a something where people can do film. And I think that was missing for me when I was young. I had to go all the way to Manhattan and all the way to different places to get that, what I needed musically and get what I needed to get creatively. So I think for me, if they can incorporate something for the arts, for creativity, for music, for film and TV, this would be a great asset and a great thing for the kids in the community, and bring a different type of energy that East New York never had. I mean, parts of Bed-Stuy and Brooklyn have it, parts of Harlem have it, parts of Queens, Jamaica Avenue has it, Harlem definitely has it. And I think with this space, if we can keep in mind the creative aspects of the community, and I think this can be a great thing for East New York. And mind you, Broadway Junction was a place where I would set up at to be a vendor and sell stuff, where I was selling T-shirts, hats, chains, watches, whatever. And the police allowed you, that was one of the only places in New York where the police station was there, and they allowed you to sell and be a vendor. And I used that money to invest into my projects to get me where I got today. So it's interesting, you know, one of the things to me was important also was setting up vendor spaces and setting a space where people can sell who don't have traditional jobs and are entrepreneurs. So that's my say-so on it. Looking forward to it happening. Hopefully they can work out all the kinks, because this would be a real powerful force for East New York.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony and sharing your story. And thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right. Our next two speakers are Rohan DeFreitas and Susan Tim Serenano. Rohan DeFreitas does not appear to be in the Zoom. Susan Tim Serenano, you are our next speaker, and apologies for mispronouncing anyone's name again. We'll promote you to panelist, and you'll be given the opportunity to share your testimony.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for allowing me to speak. I am a resident of East New York. My family and I live and work in Cypress Hills, and we absolutely love the culture, the vibrancy, and the joy that's found in our neighborhood in East New York. I find this proposal to be absolutely, as it stands, to be absolutely atrocious. For Totem to come into our community, to buy up our local businesses, and to propose not to improve the neighborhood, but to put up light blocking giant useless towers it almost makes me physically ill. Our community has maker spaces in the industrial zone. Our community has studio space in the industrial zone. Our community is a low-rise community. It is a community of independent business people, schools, families. It is not a community of sterile office towers and large useless plazas. This community needs more green spaces. It needs more schools. It needs more training. Most importantly, the area in question is zoned, as I understand it, for 6 stories. 6 stories is an appropriate height for this neighborhood. Anything larger than that is psychologically disturbing. Large towers at Broadway Junction, is it just inappropriate? They're inappropriate. And it's disturbing and upsetting to think that our warm, loving, fun, exciting neighborhood would have these towers installed by an outsider who somehow claims to want to help the community when Totem is here to make money for Totem. The community is very clear on its needs. We need transit equity. We need housing equity. We need economic justice. We do not need new towers or affordable housing that isn't really affordable for our community. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Of course, thank you. Thank you for your testimony and for taking time out of your day to participate. Thank you. This does bring us to the end of our registered speakers, but we do want to give an opportunity to members of the public who have dialed in via phone. If you did not register to speak using the dial-in hotline, but have joined via phone and do wish to speak, please indicate at this time that you would like to speak by dialing *9 on your telephone. Any dial-ins in the room that would like to speak, please dial *9. Okay, just a moment. Okay, it does not look as though anyone who's in the room via phone additionally wishes to provide testimony. So we are going to move ahead to take a brief 5-minute pause to allow anyone who may have been watching the YouTube stream or decided to participate to have a chance to register. Production, if we can go to the next slide. With our registration information. Perfect. So if anyone has not yet registered to speak and wishes to do so, please do so at this time. We are going to, please feel free to dial the participant hotline, any of the phone numbers shown here, including 877-853-5247, and use the meeting ID shown at the bottom of the screen. 618-237-7396, and the password is 1. We're going to take about a 5-minute break, so we'll reconvene at 3:47 p.m. and hear from any speakers who register during this 5-minute pause. We will be back again at 3:47 p.m. Talk to you soon. Good afternoon and welcome back, everyone, after a brief 5-minute pause during this public scoping meeting for the Herkimer-Williams proposal. Again, for the record, the City Environmental Quality Review, or CEQR number, is 24DCP055K. Again, I'm Stephanie Shalou, Director of the Environmental Assessment and Review Division at the Department of City Planning. We are currently on part 3 of the public scoping meeting, where members of the public are invited to speak for up to 3 minutes. We are going to start with a speaker who had registered to speak previously, but was not in the room. So Rohan DeFreitas will be our next speaker, followed by Jessica Franco, who registered during our break. So Rohan DeFreitas, we will promote you to panelist and you'll be given the opportunity to share your testimony. It appears we may be having, never mind, spoke too soon. Are we able to unmute Rohan? All right, it appears we're having some difficulty unmuting our next speaker.
Hi, my name's
Hi.
Rohan. My name's Rohan DeFreitas. I'm CEO and president of Crescent Consulting. Crescent Consulting is a minority and women-owned business that provides consulting services for minorities and women in the construction industry, and I've been doing this for over 30 years. I'm here in support of the Herkimer-Williams project and would like to stress that projects like this lend itself to the fact that it would promote a great economic opportunity for a community like East New York, where minorities, women, and local residents, as well as the local businesses, can have an opportunity to benefit greatly from developments such as the Herkimer-Williams. The Totem Group that's proposing this particular project, I have a very strong working relationship with them, and their track record in terms of promoting these types of projects and developing these types of projects ensures that everyone has a fair economic opportunity to grow as projects like these develop. It would lend itself to great advancement for the community and lend itself to having minority and women participation and local residents, workforce development on these types of projects. I'm here today to say that I would strongly urge the support of this project and would like for you to take that into consideration as to have this project developed within the East New York community area. Thank you to everyone, and everyone have a happy holiday.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you for being here and for your patience. I'm glad we were able to hear from you. Our next speaker is Jessica Franco, to be followed by Ro Johnson. Jessica Franco, we are not seeing you in the Zoom. If you have joined by phone, please go ahead and dial *9 to let us know you're in the room via phone. Okay, Jessica Franco does not appear to be in the room, so we will move to our next speaker, Ro Johnson. Ro Johnson, you are our next speaker.
Hi, I'm Ro Johnson. I am a homeowner in the community and a member of the Coalition for Community Advancement Steering Committee, as well as a community board member on CB5. I have serious concerns about this project and changing the current zoning from manufacturing zoning. This really worries me, especially putting housing there. I know it's affordable, but if you look at AMI and then you look at how AMI is skewed, it's not necessarily going to be affordable in the way that it needs to be to prevent displacement from the community. And while everything looks like very glittery and shiny promises, if we look at big projects, other big projects in Metro, like in New York City, like Metro Tech and Atlantic Yards, the community is always, the existing community is always kind of left hanging at the expense of newcomers. And the people who have been there end up getting displaced, and the primary reason is because without jobs, you can't live, in the housing, however affordable it is. If we don't invest in the existing manufacturing and industrial areas that have already been established, we don't create sustainable jobs that can sustain new housing. So it's like, kind of chasing our tail rather than, investing in not just workforce development, but job creation and economic development. So that said, I just have real concerns about that, because retail jobs don't tend to pay an income that will allow somebody to support themselves, nonetheless, a family. So in light of that, I have to express serious concerns about this project as I see it now. In addition to what a previous commenter had raised as far as the height of the buildings, Broadway Junction, environmentally, Broadway Junction is already extremely dark. So I think that's going to make it even more dark and just environmentally, just not a place where housing should be. And I think there's other places it can be.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony and for participating today. It does appear that we have a few dial-in folks in the room. So if those folks have registered to speak and would like to indicate that they are in the room, those of you joining us by phone, if you could now dial *9 on your phone to indicate that you would like to provide testimony. Again, *9 if you're in the room via phone. All right, I'm not seeing anyone indicating that they wish to speak for those of our dial-in participants. Again, just hit *9 on your phone if anyone is in the room that does wish to participate. All right, seeing none, that was the end of our speakers queue. And so at this point, we will move to close the scoping meeting. As a reminder, all comments heard today and those that we receive in writing will be summarized and responded to. Response provided in writing in the final scope of work, which again is the document that guides the preparation of the environmental impact statement. For those of you, if anyone did have difficulties providing their testimony today, please recall that you can submit written testimony through the NYC Engage portal at www.nyc.gov/NYC Engage, through DCP's website, or at the email or mailing addresses shown on the screen. Again, 24DCP055K_DL@planning.nyc.gov for email, and 120 Broadway, 31st floor, New York, New York, 10271. Attention, myself, Stephanie Shalou, for our mailing address. And as a reminder, please get those comments to us by 5 p.m. on Friday, December 29th, 2023. All right, without anything further, the time is 3:58 p.m. and this public scoping meeting is now closed. Thanks, everyone. Have a happy holidays and Happy New Year.